everyone, and welcome back to our podcast, Girls Future Ready, with your hosts, Julia Zalewska and Emma Harris. How are you, Emma? Are you there?
Yes, doing good.
Okay,
How about you?
uh, I'm fine as well. So, today we would like to touch upon the topic of education. And I have a question for you. What are the education requirements in the United States? And what are the levels of education in your country, Emma?
The US is kind of a little unique in that individual states actually have control over their education systems and not the national
Mm-hmm.
government. But generally speaking, in the US, I do believe that students are required to attend for 10 years from the ages of 6 to 16. And then once they turn 16, if they have permission from their parents, they're allowed to drop out. If not, they have to wait until they're 18. Um, and then for our levels of education, um, I think um, we have preschool, which is usually when you're really young, like 2 to 5 maybe, and then kindergarten, which nowadays kindergarten is often included with elementary school, which is the next level, but sometimes it's not. And then of course elementary school, like I said, then middle school, high school, and eventually college. What about
Oh, okay, I see. Mm-hmm.
what about in Poland?
Well, in Poland, it's pretty similar, although a bit different. No matter if your parents allow you or not, you have to stay in school, in some kind of school, whether it's high school or just a course to learn a job that you want to be doing in the future. You have to stay there till you're 18 years old, and only then you can drop out, or if you didn't drop out, go after to college. And when it comes to the levels, recently it's changed. It used to be we had preschool, primary school, middle school, and high school was the last step. Now it's a bit different because we only have preschool if a mom or dad wants to put a child for preschool because it's not that popular either. Then we have primary school. Then we don't have middle school anymore because primary school is now 8 years, 8 classes. And then we have 3 years of high school, and that's basically the end of education. And if someone wants to go educate themselves further, they can go to university, but it's not obligatory, obviously.
Yeah. And I guess,
Yeah.
our topic is, how important is education? I just want to ask you, like,
Mm-hmm.
do you think education is always crucial for having a good career? Because you talk about how some people go on to college, some
Mm-hmm.
don't. Do you think, things such as college or just general schooling is important?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think general schooling is important always for everyone because it gives you like a good start to maybe even make new friends, socialize, and discover your hobbies or passions, but also just learn the basic things. I think it can help with just development of the child. But when it comes to secondary education or university, I don't think it's always important. Some people have a strong idea and a strong identity. They know what they want to be in the future. So, for example, if they want to open up a business, they have some kind of talent, they're a tennis player. If you're a professional athlete, you won't go to college most likely. You don't have time. And it's okay because why would you go to college if you have such a strong idea for yourself? But if you want to educate yourself further, I think it's great to go to college because it not only gives you knowledge, but also many connections. That's my standpoint. I personally went to college, so I think education is pretty important, but not 100% of the time. What do you think, Emma?
Yeah, I fall in a pretty kind of similar position to you, I would say. I really think, building basics and stuff such as like elementary, middle school, and even sometimes high school are important. I feel like once you hit high school, it starts to kind of deviate into more specialized tracks. But in order for like, if we're talking about, is it crucial for good career? I think of course some base level is required, like you said. But outside of that, I don't always think it's, necessary. I know a lot of people who don't attend college who are doing just as well, if not making more money or having a better,
Mm-hmm.
career prospects. And I think it just depends on the individual person what you want to go into. Because obviously there's some fields like if you're going to be a doctor, you're probably going to need a little more education. Um, I would like my doctor to have at least some education. compared
Yeah, that's
to
true.
something like if you're going into like a trade of some sort, like an electrician or automotive work or something, you might be able to use less. You'll need
Hmm.
less general education and more focus in your field, I think. So I really
Yeah,
think,
focus on the skill.
yeah. So I think there is some requirement for having a good career because you have to have some baseline knowledge of stuff.
Hmm.
But I think the each level isn't always necessary.
Okay, I see. And for example, it also strikes a question, what decides that we're going to become a doctor or a mechanic? Do you think it's somehow coded in us from the start, or is it that the environment plays a role in the importance of the education in our lives? What do you think?
Oh, I definitely think environment plays a really big role. Whoever you're around as a kid's probably gonna influence what you want to do, what you want to be. And also just on top of that, the support system that you have. And I know a lot of times we think about the school environments and things within school, and of course that plays a very big role. Of course, how you're treated in school or like, do you have support in school is gonna be very crucial to how you feel about the system in general. But I would also argue that something that was often overlooked is the role of, family, parents, whatever home life you may have in your education system. Because I know, at least for me, I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have, my parents' support and stuff. And I feel like really looking at different areas, when you're looking at a lot of, in the US at least, like underserved communities and stuff, we see a lot of times there's not that backing, there's not that support, and a lot of times that's when students choose to drop out early because there's other reasons that they have. Heck, sometimes there's even things going on in the student's life where they have to get multiple jobs and they can no longer, they don't have the time to be in college or in
Hmm.
college or even high school because they're supporting their family. So I think environment plays a very big role um, in the importance of
Yes.
education for you.
I would 100% agree about the, like, even the economic situation, that your family, the household you were born into as well. But also, I think how education and studying and learning was introduced, and how you, from the start, from childhood, how your parents introduced it to you, it's really important. I would think that a child, for example, who never liked to do homework but was screamed at every day to do it, would be less likely to maybe seek out education on their own later in life, because it's just such a
Yeah.
negative connection in their mind. So I think the environment plays such a huge role. I don't think that people are just born either a genius or more less intelligent person. I think the environment plays a role in how we act later in life. If we seek education, if we're curious, or we're just not curious at all and we just want to avoid it all at all costs.
Yeah, I definitely, and I agree, and I like how you bring up the point of like how you're introduced because I think that's something that's often underlooked. People don't really look at that, but it is so important because I mean, the pressure that you put on kids is going to determine, how much effort they put into that. Are they someone who's stressed about it? Are they someone who, loves to study? Do they hate it? I think that's a really good point that you brought up. And
Mhm.
kind of talking about those, areas that we focus on with kids, what do you think schools should be focusing on? Are there any subjects that are more important than others, or is there something that you're either missing right now or that you have that you think is really important for student success?
Well, regarding the subjects, I think it really depends from one person to the second one, because we could say math is the most important subject, but then there will be so many people that just don't like maths, and it's not the way they think. It's not how they were well born to do the math. Maybe they like English more. So it really depends. But as for what should school be focusing on, I think in school there should be more, in younger classes, more play, more activities that would help the children develop some creative ideas, and there should be less pressure and just more space to create and to have fun, because you're a kid. And even in high school, those classes when you can just chill out and be creative kind of make your mind a bit less stressed and less focused on the bad things, on the tests, on the pressure, but just more it makes you happier to study, I think.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think that's something, especially in the US, we're starting to see less and less funding for creative, creative classes and stuff. And I think that's something that is often overlooked. Um, and I think for me, I agree, especially like you can say one subject's better than the other, but for every person it's different. Every person's gonna need a different skill set. And so I think yes, for like elementary and maybe middle school, you're gonna need those kind of core classes, what we consider like, math, history, English or whatever language, of course, in there you probably Polish, and science. I think those are the core classes. But I think once you get to high school, there should be more opportunities for exploring what you want to do in the future because a lot of times kids get to college and they don't know because they haven't ever had the opportunity to explore different areas they're interested in. And so I would say some of the most important classes are like, maybe your freshman, sophomore year of, high school, you're starting to look for, just try out different electives and classes that you're interested in. And then those last 2 years of high school, focusing down like, okay, I'm interested in photography. I'm going to take a lot of photography classes. Oh, I'm interested in diplomacy. I'm going to take stuff related to these classes. And so just giving kids more time, like you said, to explore their interests. And also, yeah, like more creative classes when they're younger and stuff. And I feel like creative classes also really unite people in a way that we're struggling to right now. Of course, with the digital age and stuff, kids really lack those social skills. And so I think giving them opportunities to play and to be together and develop those skills is really crucial.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. Also, the creative classes and the skill set that children should be getting at a young age will help them after to just, when you're bored, you don't go on your phone or your iPad, you do something that will develop your career or your passions. I think it's really important because nowadays it's really, well, like you said, it's really easy to get just antisocial, caught up with all your things and not socialize with others. So I think that's really important. So, do you think, for example, in the US, the school system does that for kids, or is it more that there are issues that aren't being addressed? And what are the strengths and weaknesses of the system?
Yeah, so I think a lot of our, kind of issues in the US system, because I don't, like you said, a lot of places are removing funding for the arts, there aren't these opportunities. And so I think one of the biggest issues currently that we face is just that each state controls education. And so you can get a vastly different education, but if you live in one state versus another, different places focus on different things. They're going to give you a different quality, and not just even within different states, but within your cities, within your counties. Um, a lot of times if you're
Yes,
in a
again,
more rural area or just certain areas, they're going to have less funding for their schooling. And so typically those are areas where there are people that are minorities or that are poor. Those are the areas that are going to get less funding. And so they're going to have a harder time providing a good quality education to their students. And so I think that's and you hear this a lot in the US of people calling for these solutions to this problem because it's such a prevalent issue in the US of like I could live one street away from you and I could get a completely different education because we could go to different schools. And so at my school, I might be getting a quality education. I might have a lot of opportunity. And in another school, I'm just like trying to, you know, figure something out. I'm just trying to get the basics of education. And so it's very sad that there's not like kind of a quota or like a standard um
and
for
is there
very
no way to switch the schools? Is
is there
it
some
that you're in one school and you're stuck, or can you switch it even if you live in a different city
it's
or in a different
depends.
street?
Yeah, this kind of goes back to like I said, a lot of times it's the people who, can't afford it or who live in lower income areas that are having trouble with these schoolings because if you can afford it, you can move. You can move to a district that has a better school or you can afford to send your kid to like a private school or something. But when you don't have those kind of income abilities or there's different circumstances in your family, you might be stuck in an area that are these lower income ones, and the way that schools get funding typically is that it's based on their performance scores. So if you score better, if your students are, considered more intelligent on these aptitude tests, you get more funding. Well, who's going to be having all this funding, who's going to be performing well on the test, is the people who have the money to support students who have those opportunities already. They're getting students who are going to be they're getting a higher education, and so they're performing better on these exams, and then they're getting more money, and so it keeps the cycle going. So instead of giving funding to schools that are struggling with their exam scores, it's now rewarding people who can afford to teach their students well. And so I think that's one of our weaknesses. There are some strengths too, I would say, especially if you're in a larger city. Like I said, this is one of the areas where, depending where you live, it's going to be very different. So I know when I've lived in both the city and rural areas. And in rural areas, we had the bare minimum of classes because you didn't have enough teachers to teach more. And so you really couldn't focus on any electives or things you're interested in. But if you're in the city, I think what strength is that there's a lot of different classes. So you'll have lots of different language options to choose from. You'll have various classes in your interests. You can study automotive stuff, you can study photography, you can study all these really niche areas. And I think that's a strength. But yes, there's a lot of systematic issues in the US education system. And I'm wondering, are there similar issues in Poland, or kind of what's the system like there?
Well, not similar issues at all, because we are a united country, as I would say, like in in the eyes of the law. So every void ship, how it's called, it's not a state in Poland, it's a void ship. Every void ship basically is united by law, and in the whole state of Poland, the education is pretty much the same. As for schools, the quality of the education differs, but it's pretty united as well. There can be some schools that have issues, mostly because, yes, like you said, they are in the well, underfunded areas, for example, or more older blocks or apartments are there. And then there is the issue of poverty, and then those people tend to create more problems at school, like for example smoking, drinking alcohol at a young age, and not really studying. So we see that a lot in Poland, but mostly schools are good. Like if you get an education at an average school or average high school, the closest to your house, you have like 80 or 90% chance that it's really good education, and you can get into the college that you want. You can get a Matura exam, which is the final exam comparable to SATs in the States. So yeah, the system isn't really perfect because obviously it was created a long time ago, and there's an overload of subjects. Students are tired. They have, for example, 8 hours of class a day, and then they can't have any free time because they can have up to 10 tests a week. So it's really hard for the students. But I would say the hardest it gets, it's in high school, because obviously you have exams, and then on top of that you also have this big final exam approaching, so you have to study a lot. And also in Poland, all the colleges, the national universities that are funded by the government, they are all free. So it's good because the education is accessible. But if they're free, anyone can apply and anyone can get in just by grades. That means there's very strong competition. And also the private universities that are maybe for people who are a bit more wealthy, they are not that great compared to the public universities. So, well, it's not perfect, but we don't have huge issues. It's all united. The education, I think, in Europe rankings is okay. And we have some very great universities, also very affordable if the college is free. That is great, I think.
And I love that you bring up, university. I didn't even think to mention that, but like, that's a good point. And here it's the opposite. The private universities are usually better because you can, you can pay to go there. And so they're having more funding and stuff. And, we have an issue with people not being able to attend college because of the cost. Because, I mean, here the university is very much not free. And you'll pay anywhere from 20 to 80,000 a year just to attend college. It's extremely high. To attend, you basically have to have scholarships or take out loans, or find some other way. And so a lot of students can't afford it. And I think that's something very important to bring up, kind of like you said, and
Yes,
something that the US
but
could take from Poland.
Yes, but I think in Poland, as in every European country, it's slowly going to be that way as well. Is it unfortunately? I don't know. But it's slowly going to be that the public universities will decrease in the rankings and the private universities are starting to get better. Because as for now, in Poland, there are really maybe three private universities that are considered really good. And it's my university that I go to, and then two other universities. But mostly in Poland, it's now all about marketing. So, for example, I go to university that puts really a lot of money, a lot of funds in the marketing. So a lot of people want to apply here. It's also a business school, and it also has a collaboration with different universities in different countries. So students want to go here because it's an international experience. But yeah, I think it's sad that it is like this, that to get education, you most likely will have to pay. But I think it's also good that, for example, in countries as US or UK, you can get those student loans that are not that draining. They are affordable, I think, from what I know. And also there are a ton of scholarships that you can get, as of my knowledge. In Poland, it's not like that. In Poland, you can get a scholarship only provided basically by the university. And usually, even if you're low income and you have great grades, the best of the best, you can have your first year paid for, and then you have to keep it up and you will get maybe 50% of the tuition paid. So it's not that affordable. You have to pay full money, like full. You don't get a loan, you don't get a scholarship most likely. So that's the difference, I think, that is worse in Poland and in the United States.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point to bring up. And I just want to say I think this was a great topic, talking about how important education is and the difference in our countries and stuff. And I just want to say I'm glad we joined today to do this
Mhm.
to talk.
Yeah, I'm really glad as well. I think it's an important topic to talk about. Well, considering that if you didn't really live in the country, like I didn't really live in the United States, I don't know how it is in practice. And it's really easy to think that maybe somewhere else the grass is greener. But this education system has its issues in every country. So yeah, I'm really glad we talked about it as well, and I'm looking forward to doing another episode with you soon for the Girls Future Ready podcast.
Yep. And so I think we're gonna end it here, but I hope everyone has a great day. Bye.
Yes. Okay. Bye, guys.